and 14, 2020, was filed with the Upper Nimba Election Magistrate, J. Blatter Flumo, in Senatorial City, Nimba County. Based on that complaint, the first hearing was scheduled for December 16, 2020, at which hearing our lawyers made a motion for change of venue because of threats to our life. Those threats were detected when we observed that we were being followed by an unmarked vehicle over the course of several days, just before and immediately after the December 8, 2020 election. Our intelligence sources warned us to be careful. We therefore fled Kanta Nimba and sought refuge outside of Nimba County. It was due to our expressed fear that our lawyers requested the change of venue, which was granted by the hearing officer in Senatorial Nimba. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, our distinguished ladies, women of Liberia, some of our male candidates, particularly the MDR and CDC candidate and his party's political leader, took turns to insult us every step of the way during the campaign and after the election. Their insults did nothing to deter us in any way. I am sure you remember what happened to Botokane. We were similarly, what happened to Botokane, Bapolu's lone female candidate in a field of 8 men. Like Madam Kane, we were similarly the only female candidate in the field of 7 candidates. We were already following the Babulu case where Madam Boto was threatened with the country devil, beating, and even one of her female supporters reportedly sexually abused. Anyone who understands why we had to flee from Nimba immediately upon the intelligence received, followed by our observation of the vehicle stalking us. Ladies and gentlemen, our case resumed in Monrovia on December 18, 2020, and it is continuing to this day. Our complaints were quite clear, and I will just give you a summary of what our complaints filed with the Elections Commission were. One, that on December 7, 2020, our poll watchers for districts 4 and 5 were chased by unknown local persons in several of the precinct towns. Our polls were therefore not monitored by us in those districts because of that. Due to lack of communication, we did not get the information until a day after the election, when the tallying was already ongoing in both Upper and Lower Nimba tally centers. We had initially requested for the votes in those 2 districts because of that to be physically recounted. But it will interest you to know that while we testified before the Elections Commission hearing office, both magistrates were in the room as we testified to these events. On December 8, 2020, ballots were cast for the first time in the history of election in this country in open cartons instead of the regularly certified and protected ballot boxes at 2 polling centers in Ganta. When we questioned the electoral supervisor for those centers, we were told that the ballot boxes were missing. Interesting, isn't it? The election supervisor for those centers testified to this fact at the ongoing hearing. And he told the hearing that the Ganta police had refused to take charge of the boxes and other sensitive election materials on the eve of the election. Therefore, they had no alternative but to store those boxes and sensitive materials in a public school building without any security whatsoever overnight. The morning of the election, they observed that some of those boxes were missing. That resulted to them casting ballots in cartons, open cartons. Our third complaint was again filed when the tally was already ongoing in Senatorial. We observed that our votes were reduced at 2 polling centers. Again, when we complained, the magistrate ordered that they take down the computer printout that was posted on the wall when the observation was made. He thereafter refused to post any more printout on the wall until the tallying was completed. We filed a formal complaint to that effect. A few days into the counting, ballot boxes arrived in Senatorial without any security, and those boxes had broken seals. Once again, we raised the alarm. The magistrate stated that the boxes were of no significance because the T's, what is called T's, temporary evidence envelopes, were available in his possession. That's what's important. Our observer took note and continued with the tallying. Later, the T's for those very unaccompanied boxes that had broken seals were missing. The T's could not be found for 8 precincts. At that point, we compiled our combined complaints and presented it to the magistrate, who had become so defensive to our team and our observers. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, distinguished women of Liberia and citizens of Liberia, these were the initial complaints filed with the Elections Commission. However, on December 23rd, 2020, we appeared before the hearing officer to testify. During our testimony, the Upper Nimba and Lower Nimba magistrates were present in the room. Immediately following our testimony, both magistrates took off for Senatorial, Nimba County, and arrived there at 2 a.m. on the 24th of December. When the information got out, community dwellers, concerned citizens became concerned, and they went to the elections office, and there, for sure, the 2 magistrates were seen in the record room with ballot boxes opening, and they claimed they had gone to tally referendum results. From 2 a.m. on the 24th, they were working throughout the Christmas. We are concerned about these events because we had earlier filed our complaints, and we had expected that the Upper Nimba Magistrate record room would be quarantined, but they were not. Ladies and gentlemen, this information is significant because the magistrates, like we said, had listened to the magnitude of our complaints before leaving for Nimba. The question is, why were they handcuffing people for asking about their presence in the record room overnight when there is an ongoing case? Because the Liberty Party Nimba County Secretary General was handcuffed for asking, what are you doing here? Others were detained and told to delete pictures from their phone for taking pictures of them in a record room where sensitive materials are kept. What were they hiding? Why was the entire Upper Nimba Magistrate not quarantined when we had a case with the Elections Commission? Distinguished women of Liberia, ladies and gentlemen of the press, we want to remind all of us that the former president, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, did one important thing in this country and for the rest of Africa in general. She emboldened women and gave them the courage to venture into politics and shift the troubling narratives of our continent and country in particular. Thankfully, she is still alive. What is more troubling in these events, in my mind, is that these elections in Liberia, we have witnessed state-sponsored candidates, the way they proceeded in targeting strong female candidates, obviously to frighten us into submission. They are badgering and tormenting women so that we will abandon the political field. For us, what happened in Nimba and Bapulu and other places are not isolated events. They are calculated attempts to silence the voices of women in politics and squash the hard-earned legacy of Madam Helen Johnson Sirleaf while she is even still alive. What an affront. They have always charged that women do not support women. That story was challenged in this just ended midterm election in some counties. The women of Nimba and Bapulu counties, they stood up. They voted. Their votes have been manipulated, and we are simply asking on their behalf. They want answers. When our competitor took to the social media and stated that election is not a beauty pageant, he was implying that women are only fit to participate in beauty pageants. He went further to say that, quote, if it were a beauty pageant, I would not have participated because I'm a man. What a misogynistic statement. Society works best when women and men work together to shape the destiny of our society. The women in Nimba and the people of Nimba in general. Because the call for women leadership is not just from women. It's also from our men. It's from the boys. It's from the girls. When they stood in the sun and the rain to cast their ballot, they did so because they realized that until you can bring in the women to be a part of our political equation, things are never going to go right. Their hopes must not be dashed by calculated fraud, masterminded by a few individuals whose conduct undermines the integrity of the commission and dampens its image. To end, we believe that the right thing to do in Nimba is a rerun in those areas that we have complained about. Let us not forget that this country, the rigged elections of 1985 led Liberia along the path of self-destruction, where over 250 precious lives were lost because an election was rigged. Fraud allegations in elections are critical and serious and must not be overlooked. We are simply asking the commission to do what is right, to respect the voices of the people, and have a rerun in those areas where we have registered our complaints. If our adversary claims to have won fairly and squarely, then there should be no problem. They should not shy away from any rerun or recount. We have called you here today to make this clear. We've been silent for a long time, because we wanted the legal remedy to take its course. Today, we have called you to give you these updates so that the public know exactly where we are. We are still before the Elections Commission Hearing Board. And we are asking and hoping that the right things will be done so that our people will rest in peace and know that their votes are counted. Thank you very much, and may God bless all of us.
A few questions. Okay. Thank you so much. My name is Orita Bono. I report for ECOWAS Radio and volunteer at Women's TV Liberia. After going through all of this process in reaching this stage, what are some of your disappointments?
Well, first of all, we believe that the case is taking a little bit longer than we had expected. Our disappointment, which is legal to a large extent, our case is against the Elections Commission, and the Election Commission happens to be the judge, over a case that is brought before the commission. But again, we are trusting that they will do the right thing, so we will leave it at that.
Okay, so let me actually implement for Cool 91.9 Cool Television. What happens if your request is not guaranteed or granted by the National Elections Commission for a rerun? What will be your next court action?
The law provides a lot of other remedies. The case does not start and end at the Elections Commission.
My name is Gerald, coining a red for Front Page Africa newspaper. The case at the NEC has been ongoing for more than a month now. Where is it standing? Where do you stand?
We believe we have a strong case. We believe there were a lot of irregularities. We believe that the regulations that govern the conduct of this election were grossly violated by the magistrates in Nimba, and so we feel very strong about our case.
My name is Edith. I write for Smart News Liberia and also CTTV. If NEG is the referee right now, and NEG is the judge, so if the case goes against you, what will be your next step?
Like I said, there are other legal remedies. It doesn't end it.
Okay, before the next question, we would like the table to introduction with other people on the field, on the high table, so that you can know who's here behind Madam Gongloe, okay?
So my name is Marietta Mato, the Executive Director for Alliance for Women Advancement.
My name is Marjan Kamara. I'm the chair of the African Women Leaders Network.
I'm Ulubanke King Akerele, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, former Minister of Commerce and Industry, and chair of the Angie Brooks International Center for Women's Empowerment, Leadership Development, International Peace and Security.
My name is Clara Dole, former mayor of the city of Monrovia. I'm a member of the Women's Elder Forum of Liberia.
I'm Rosemary Peter Toa, former treasurer for IPPF Region, Africa Region. I'm the president for the Gongloe-Weh Annual General Assembly and serve as the National General Secretary of YWC of Liberia.
My name is Councillor Gloria M. Scott. I'm a part of the legal team defending our candidate from Nimba County, candidate Edith Gongloe-Weh.
My name is Marty Martin Wells, eminent woman, Angie Brooks.
Okay. Excuse me, former Chief Justice of the Republic of Liberia.
Former chairman of the Elections Commission.
You need to know
Former chair of the Constitutional Review Committee. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Because the table would like, some of them might want to say something. Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Marjol, you back.
During our presence here should be a testimony to the interest and concern of women. And I think we have probably demonstrated that more in these elections than earlier ones. We want to let the public know that we are giving full support to our female candidates, that we will not allow them to be cheated, if I may say that, and to be put at a disadvantage simply because they are women. So we, starting with these elections and going forward, we want the public to know that the women of Liberia will be standing behind female candidates in the effort to win seats in the leading institutions of our country. We don't have to remain secretaries here and there. We are capable, we have demonstrated it. You know, we have produced the first female president, democratically elected in Liberia, and we have witnessed many instances where women have been treated very unfairly, and they have been subjected to violence and all of that. So we want to serve notice that we will be standing together behind the female candidates who have the courage to vie for positions of authority, and let the public be aware and be warned.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very pleased for that statement from Marjon, also a former Minister of Foreign Affairs and former senior official of the UN, which she didn't mention but is equally critical. But I'm glad she started off with that overall perspective. I have a couple of things to say. I want to commend that statement. I think it's very timely to have had this, and I think we should publish this entire statement in the papers and also be on the radio. But here are my particular contribution. The issues she brought up about the impediments to her ability to exercise the role as the candidate to the extent that she had to move to other sites is an important dimension of the human rights dimension of the electoral process. So in effect, the human rights dimension of the electoral process is to ensure that the candidate has a particular right to do X, Y, Z, but more than that, that her supporters also have the right to properly exercise their voting and all of that. And it is clear from what we have heard here, and more than that, from her complaint to the Elections Commission, that this was violated. What does this mean? It means that, number one, our Human Rights Office should be aware, informed. Secondly, I believe it is perfectly in order for her to communicate this, her situation, and her statement to the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Office here. It is very important. I believe you should send your statement, because it is important that this matter be properly looked at, not only from the standpoint of the candidate, but the significance and implication for the human rights dimension of this. And I would also, in doing that, I think you should ask them to look into this for us. Okay, we are part of the international community. Number two, this is the 10th anniversary of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325. 1325 means to promote and encourage women's political participation in peace and security. This is an important dimension. So what are we saying? Therefore, the whole issue of the request for rerun is in order, needs to be properly attended to by the NEC. They have an obligation. They have an obligation. So you can't just leave it at it's been going on and on. Let's do something concrete. I think it is in order, her request for a rerun. This is what she's asking for. And if we are to be part of the international community and speak with pride and whatnot, as we heard, the statements by the president yesterday, 2 days ago, in terms of his annual message, this is part of the human rights preservation here in Liberia. So we as women, we will not be intimidated. All these efforts were to intimidate the voters and to intimidate the candidate. there are implications for this. And so, as you've just heard from my colleague, the voices of women are not going to be stampeded, and we're not going to be insulted by whoever made this statement about it's not a beauty contest. Do we look like people who got concerned about beauty contests? Huh? Look at us. We don't fall in that category. We are people and women of consequence who have played our part in the society, locally and internationally, to the extent you have a former chief justice here, a former head of NEC. So we want to be treated, and we demand, and we must be treated with the respect, with the decorum and whatnot. We are not here for no beauty contest. We want action, we want to support what Madam has indicated, and we would like the NEC being headed by 2 women as co-chairs to take up this issue. We want action. We cannot just continue. That's my statement that I have to make. Thank you very much.
If I may, what is an issue concerning the conduct of elections, the laws, the regulations, which has manifested itself during these particular elections in referendum on December 8, 2020, is the capacity, the legal capacity of NEC to implement the laws and regulations during elections, to create a level playing field for all the candidates, irrespective of sex. This is what is an issue. And if you ask me whether NEC has the capacity to manage the affairs of the elections as far as excusing violence, both verbal and physical violence from the process, I say no. The laws as they are on the books, and when I say the laws, it also includes opinions of the Supreme Court. It also includes opinions of the Supreme Court, which create a confusion whether NEC has that authority to manage the electoral process, the conduct of elections, to ensure protection of the rights of all candidates, especially female candidates. I said no. And this is what we need to look at. This is what we need to look at. In our very recent memory, Cornelia Kura, maybe you, the journalist, can help me. The incident that happened in the electoral district with Cornelia Kura, there has not been a report. There has not been any arrest. There has been no prosecution. We go to Tilia Ure. You can help me. As far as I know, there has been no report. There has been no arrest. And we go backwards to 2005. The elections of Mississippi. Now everybody's got crocodile skin like Mississippi. The body parts of Mississippi became part of the campaign. The biological function of a woman's body became part of the campaign. And that was with impunity. With impunity. Like you're hearing her say, it was said, this is not a beauty contest. What is that? We're talking about articulating issues that affect the lives of ordinary Liberians, and you're trying to trivialize a candidate, and nothing is done. Nothing is, I mean, absolutely nothing. We come to December 8th. Aside from her, the situation in normal in Popolu, there is not a report. Like I said, you can prove me right or wrong. All NEC did withdraw her staff and reschedule the elections. That's all NEC did. The devil came out. Nothing. People were beaten up, had to go to the hospital. Nothing. The clan chief or the chief had the nerve to invade the sanctity of the process, to seize a ballot box and sensitive election material. Nothing. So, and those actions undermine the credibility and the integrity of the whole process. So, I mean, not to bore you or to waste your time, I think we really need to look at the law. And I keep saying to people I talk to, there is something wrong with the law. There is something wrong with the Supreme Court opinion that says that NEC doesn't have the authority to deal with acts of violence that occur during an electoral process that the law has put NEC in charge of. I say no. If we want a process that will be credible, that will have the support from the population of the outcome of that process, so that those elected to the office will be respected and treated as those duly elected, then NEC must have the power to fine, to arrest, and prosecute, make sure they are prosecuted, and have the authority, even those who are prosecuting election violences or violations, they must be answerable to NEC for that period. They must be answerable to NEC, because what they do or don't do, it directly impacts the work of them. So NEC must have control. The law cannot say NEC will not have control. Then at the same time, in chapter 10 of the law that governs NEC, it talks about fines and penalties. So how NEC will get to the fine and the penalty if the Supreme Court says that the NEC doesn't have authority to investigate violations, especially physical violence? There's something wrong with the law. There's something critically wrong with the law, and I hope, and I'm calling on the political parties and all of us who are interested in women's participation, that we need to sit and be serious about the law that governs this process. It's not enough to participate in the process and say, oh, this particular political party or political groupings has more seats in the legislature, and then we forget about the process. So that's totally sorry to take up all of our time, but this is what I have.
It was excellent, you see? It's excellent.
I would just say that as the former mayor of Monrovia, I have a lot of young girls that I went to several programs to give my mentoring to, and I want us to realize this election is not just about 2020 election. It's about us preparing our young women to feel that they have a voice. If the young women who are coming after us, all of us here, you see, we are all gray-headed old ladies. If the young women coming after us do not feel that we are taking a stand against an abuse of another woman, they will feel it's okay for the men to continue doing such things. We have to make a statement, and I think what Madam Gongloe is doing is appreciated by all of us, because it will affect the young women of this country. And that's my main concern. We must set an example so that the young women of this country will one day say, those women stood up for us, and this is how we can do this, or this is why we can do that. So that's my comment. All the other comments made by my other friends on this table were appropriate, and I thank them for it, and I thank you all for being here.